There is a question I want you to sit with before I say another word. Not a question you answer with your mind, but a question you feel in your body. If your desire were already fulfilled, completely and permanently done, how would you be standing right now? How would you be breathing? What would your face look like? What would you be thinking about on your way to work tomorrow morning? Would you be checking anything? Would you be monitoring any result? Would you be calculating odds or rehearsing worst-case scenarios or asking yourself whether it is actually going to happen? No, you would not. You would simply be living, moving through your day as a person who has already arrived. And that quality, that particular quality of someone who is not waiting for anything, is exactly what most people are missing. Not the technique, not the visualization, not the affirmation, but the quality of already having arrived. Most people cannot settle into that question, not because the answer is complex, but because something within them refuses to rest in it. Something keeps pulling them back to the version of themselves who is still waiting, still checking, still wondering if it is going to happen. That something is the only thing standing between you and everything you have asked for. I am Abdullah. I taught Neville Goddard for 5 years beginning in 1933. And the single most important correction I ever made to any student was not a new technique. It was not a more elaborate method of prayer. It was not a longer or more detailed imaginal act. The correction was always the same. You are living in the wrong tense. You are treating your desire as something that has not happened yet, and as long as you do that, you are correct. It has not. But here is what I need you to hear, and I need you to feel it deeply, not just understand it. It is already done, not almost done, not in progress, not on its way to you like a package moving through the mail. Done, complete, finished in the realm where all things are first real before they appear in the world you can touch. Creation is finished. Neville understood this and taught it until the end of his life. Every state of consciousness you could ever desire to occupy already exists. The person who has the relationship you want exists. The person who carries the financial ease you desire exists. The person who lives in that body, in that home, with that peace, that certainty, that quiet confidence, that person already exists as a real and permanent state of consciousness. Your work is not to build that state from the ground up. Your work is to stop living in a different one. That distinction is everything. It changes the entire texture of the practice. It changes the posture from which you approach your desire. Because if you are trying to build something, you are working, you are laboring, you are adding effort to effort, technique to technique, hoping the accumulation eventually leads to a result. But if you are selecting something that already exists, the entire orientation shifts. You are not laboring, you are choosing, you are moving, you are occupying. When you understand that your desire is already complete, you stop asking for it. You stop performing techniques aimed at bringing it closer. You stop the restless inner labor of someone who is trying to manufacture an outcome. You simply ask yourself one question: which state am I occupying right now? And if the answer is not the state where your desire is already real, you move, you shift, you return. That is all this has ever been. Now I want to speak directly to the way most people fail at this, because the failure is so consistent, so predictable, and so unnecessary. You sit down to do your imaginal work. You close your eyes and you see yourself in the desired state. You feel it, perhaps genuinely, perhaps for several minutes. Something in you relaxes, something shifts. And for a few moments you are there, living in the knowing, breathing the air of the fulfilled. Then you open your eyes and the world is exactly as it was. And you think, consciously or not, it has not happened yet. I can see that it has not happened. And with that thought, you step back out of the state. You return to the observer who is waiting for proof. And now you have undone in one glance what you spent 10 minutes building. This is not a failure of will. This is not a spiritual weakness. This is a misunderstanding of what the imaginal act is for. The imaginal act is not a signal you send into the universe and then wait to see if it was received. It is a statement about who you are right now. It is you selecting your identity. And identity is not a 10-minute practice. It is what you return to automatically when you are not thinking about it. It is the water in which you swim. So the question is not whether you practiced correctly during your quiet time. The real question is this: between your imaginal acts, what state are you swimming in? Most people swim in the state of the unfulfilled. They walk through their days narrating the evidence that their desire has not yet arrived. The absence of money is visible. The absence of the relationship is visible. The unchanged body is visible. The unanswered message is visible. And they absorb that visibility. They take it seriously. They let it inform their inner conversation. And in doing so, they confirm the very state they are trying to leave. Think of what that means in practice. You spend your formal practice occupying the state of the fulfilled, 10 minutes, perhaps 20, in genuine feeling of the wish already done. Then you go about your day, and for the next 14 hours, you subtly, continuously reinforce the opposite. Not dramatically, not consciously, just through the quiet, running commentary of a person who is still waiting. When will it come? Is it working? Why is nothing changing? I thought I was doing this right. Those 14 hours outweigh the 20 minutes every single time. Not because the 20 minutes are worthless, but because frequency and duration determine what becomes your dominant state. And your dominant state is what the law reflects back to you. I say to you plainly, the outer world is showing you what you have already assumed. It is not current information. It is old information. It is the harvest of a seed you planted weeks or months ago. When you look at it and feel disappointment or urgency or doubt, you are planting the next harvest. Do you understand what that means? You are letting yesterday's garden determine what you will grow tomorrow. The correction is not effort. The correction is remembrance. Remember that it is already done. Not as a positive thought layered over fear, but as the actual operating truth of the situation. The state you desire is real right now in the only place that is primary, the imaginal world, the world of consciousness. And your outer world, the world of appearances, is simply catching up to where your inner world already is. Before I continue, I want to offer you something practical. We have prepared a free guide called the Manifest Reset. It contains 5 gentle shifts designed to help you return to the state of the wish fulfilled when you fall out of it. When the outer world pushes back, when doubt comes in the night, when you feel the gap between where you are and where you want to be. If you would like free access to the Manifest Reset, simply comment the word reset below this video and we will send it to you. This guide is built directly on Neville's teachings, and it gives you specific, usable tools for every moment when the assumption feels difficult to maintain. Comment reset, and it is yours. Now, let me share a story about a woman that Neville recorded in his book, The Law and the Promise. She once heard Neville speak one evening about an artist who had captured the feeling behind the words, "Isn't it wonderful?" Not the visualization of any specific outcome, just the pure, open-ended feeling that something wonderful was happening right now. This woman was 55 years old, out of work, behind on her rent, with a worn-out car and a nearly empty bank account. She had no family to rely on. By her own account, she had nothing left to lose. She had been attending Neville's lectures for almost a year, and she was desperate enough to test what she had heard. She stopped trying to imagine every single thing she needed. She let go of the exhausting list of detailed requests. Instead, night after night as she drifted off to sleep, she repeated those words. "Isn't it wonderful? Something amazing is happening to me now." And she felt, as sincerely as she could, the feeling those words would carry if they were true. She continued this for 2 months. Then one day in October, she happened to run into a casual acquaintance who mentioned he was traveling to New York. They spoke briefly, and she forgot the conversation entirely. 1 month later, on the exact same day, that same man appeared at her door. In his hand was a certified check made out in her name for $2,500. Through a sequence of events she could not have scripted or predicted, an old friend she had not seen or heard from in 25 years had decided, entirely on his own, to share a portion of his wealth with her. For the next 2 years, she received monthly checks from his attorney, enough not only to live on, but to have a car, proper clothes, and a comfortable apartment. And then she received legal documents ensuring that same income for the rest of her natural life. She did not visualize this. She did not plan this. She did not even know something like this was possible. She simply lived in the feeling of something wonderful already happening, and the world organized itself around that feeling in ways her reasoning mind could never have imagined. Now, I want you to notice something very specific about what she did and what it means for you. She did not hold the state for 2 months without wavering. She was human. She had a worn-out car and a nearly empty bank account. The outer evidence was completely opposite of what she desired. And yet, she returned night after night to the feeling. She did not fight the outer world. She did not argue with what she saw. She did not try to convince herself that the evidence was wrong. She simply repeatedly returned to the feeling of something already wonderful, to the end, to the done. That returning is the practice, not the first entry into the state. The returning, the coming back after you have drifted, the quiet and undramatic act of placing yourself again into the feeling of already having arrived. That is what 2 months of consistent practice looks like. Not 2 months of perfect, unbroken focus. 2 months of returning, and the world, which cannot do otherwise, reflected her persistence. This is the law in motion. The end she occupied was not a specific scene filled with detailed imagery. It was the felt reality of being someone to whom wonderful things were already done, and because she was genuinely living in that state, the outer world had no option but to mirror it. Now I want to speak about something that most teachers leave out, because it is uncomfortable to say and even more uncomfortable to hear. The reason you fall out of the state is not doubt. Doubt is only a symptom. The real reason you fall out of the state is that your inner conversation does not match your assumption. You assume it is done during your formal practice, and then for the rest of your day, you speak as someone for whom it is not done. You think, when will it come? You think, why is it taking so long? You think, I wonder if I did it correctly. You think, maybe I should try another method. And every one of those thoughts is a step out of the state. Every one of them is you returning to the identity of the person who is waiting rather than the person who already has. Neville was very clear about this. He taught that your inner speech is your real prayer, not your formal imaginal acts, not your 10 minutes before sleep. The conversation you are constantly carrying on with yourself throughout the entire day, that is what determines the state you actually live in. So let me ask you again the question I began with. If your desire were already done, what would your inner conversation sound like? Not during your practice, but during ordinary life, during breakfast, during your commute, during the quiet moments when no one is watching and you are simply living. A person who truly knows their desire is done does not have a running inner dialogue about when it will arrive or whether it is working. They are simply living. They are simply being the person they assume themselves to be. The thought of checking for proof does not even arise, because a person who already has something does not look for evidence that they have it. They simply have it. Begin to listen to your inner speech as though it were a broadcast you are sending into a very responsive medium, because it is. The medium is your own consciousness. It is always listening, always taking seriously whatever you are telling it, and always, without exception, confirming what you most persistently say to yourself. Change what you say, and you change what is confirmed. It is not more complicated than this, but it requires more honesty than most people are willing to apply. You have to be willing to catch yourself mid-thought, mid-sentence, mid-story, and gently redirect without drama, without self-judgment. Simply recognize that is the old story, here is the new one. It is already done. That is the level of embodiment being pointed to here. Not performance, not forcing emotions that do not arise naturally, not pushing through contrary evidence with tension and repeated affirmations. True embodiment is quieter than that. It is the settled quality of a person who is not waiting, the ease of someone who knows, the stillness that comes when you have stopped arguing with yourself about whether something is true. And here is the important part about reaching that stillness. You do not reach it through effort. You reach it by returning. Every time your inner speech drifts back to lack or waiting or uncertainty, you notice it and you return. You say to yourself, without drama, it is already done. You redirect, not forcefully, not desperately, simply, the way a navigator adjusts course on a long journey, without alarm, with steady hands returning to the correct direction. The state of the wish fulfilled is not a peak you climb once and then cling to with all your strength. It is a home you return to. The door is always open. You can walk back in at any moment, and the more often you return, the less time you spend outside. Until one day you notice that you have not left in days, in weeks, even in months. By then, the outer world will look entirely different, not because you forced it, but because you changed the state that was being reflected, and the world, which is a faithful mirror, showed you exactly what you had come to assume as normal. This is why it can be said with certainty, it is not the dramatic breakthrough that transforms a life. It is the consistency of returning, the willingness to come back to the knowing 10 times a day if necessary, 20 times if needed, without shame, without the belief that you have failed just because you drifted. Drifting is human. Returning is the practice. And if you have been doing everything you know how to do and still feel the gap between where you are and where you want to be, I want you to have access to the 5 resets we have prepared. The Manifest Reset is a free guide built directly on this teaching. It offers 5 clear, practical tools for those moments when the assumption begins to slip. One of the resets addresses doubt and delay head-on, because that is where most people tend to fall apart. They hold the state beautifully for a while, and then the silence of waiting begins to feel like proof, and they start negotiating with the assumption. Another reset focuses on the drift of inner speech itself, giving you a simple method for returning to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, even on the most difficult days. Comment the word reset below this video, and we will send it to you at no cost. Now, let me close with this. You are not a person who is trying to manifest something. That very framing is the issue. It places you outside your desire, reaching toward it, hoping to pull it closer. But the truth is simpler and far more profound than that. You are a state of consciousness right now. In this very moment, you are occupying some inner reality. The only question is, which one? And because every state already exists, because creation is finished, because there is no state of desire and fulfillment that has not already been made real in the realm of consciousness, you can step into the state of your wish fulfilled without earning it, without deserving it, without explaining it to anyone, including yourself. You do not ask the room you are about to enter for permission to step inside. You simply enter, walk into the state where your desire is already done, not tomorrow, now. Not after the outer world gives you a sign. Now, carry that inner knowing throughout your day. Not loudly, not as a performance, but quietly, in the way of a person who simply knows something is true and no longer needs to speak about it, defend it, or check it against appearances. Let the outer world do what it will. It will always show you what has already been assumed, so keep your assumption clear. Keep it steady. Keep it rooted in the tense of the already done, and trust the law that Neville spent his entire life teaching. It is not a law that works sometimes. It is not a law that rewards only the deserving or the especially spiritual. It is a law in the same way gravity is a law, consistent, impersonal, always in motion. It is responding to your assumption right now. The only question is what you are giving it to respond to. Give it the done. And if you are ready to go even deeper, there is a question I want to leave in your mind before you move on from here. If the outer world has no creative power over you, then why do so many things seem to have the power to disturb you? If you are truly the cause and not the effect, then why does a word someone says, a door that closes, or a number in your account still sometimes feel like a final verdict? That is exactly the question the next video answers. It is called Why Nothing Should Ever Bother You, and it will take everything shared here and reveal the other side of the same truth. Not only how to live in the state of your desire, but why nothing that appears in the outer world can truly affect you unless you give it permission. That video is appearing on your screen right now. I encourage you to watch it.